Knowing how much your clients owe you is one of the biggest and most important pieces in the puzzle that is managing cash flow for your business. People paying you in a timely manner and in full is one of the things that then allows you to turn around and pay your vendors, pay your staff, pay your overhead, and even pay yourself. That's why knowing all of the outstanding amounts and the rough timeline on which they're going to be paid is critically important as a small business owner. And QuickBooks has quite a few different reports that allow you to get this information. So let's go ahead and dive into the various areas today where we can view this information and what the pros and cons of each one are. All right. Now, one of the biggest ones that I personally really like, and I use this one a lot in my business, is actually invoices. Now we can see here I actually have an invoices card on my dashboard. But let's say I did not have this card and wanted to navigate into this screen. I would go to Sales and Get Paid, and then Invoices, okay? Now, this Invoices screen actually gives us some pretty great information, but I will say this, it is with a little bit of a caveat, okay? So it tells us how much is unpaid, but only within the last 365 days. Now, of course, I always hope that you're not dealing with a situation where somebody hasn't paid you for years on end, but that is a fact of doing business. Sometimes we work on a project or even send product out into the world, and that amount ends up becoming uncollectible. So that is one thing to keep in mind here. If you are billing and if you are hoping to collect money, this particular screen might not be the full picture of what is owed to your business. That's where the accounts receivable reports come in, and we will go to those in just a moment here. But I really like this as an option for reviewing what is owed to me basically in QuickBooks, because as a small business owner myself, I actually don't currently have anybody who owes me past that 365-day mark. All of my clients are pretty good about paying on a regular basis. So this is a total of what is actually owed to me, right? Now, of course, this is a sample file. This is not my own QuickBooks file, but this invoices screen in my own business is actually a complete summary of what is owed to me, even though it is only for the last 365 days. Okay. And the reason that I like this screen is because it not only shows what's overdue quickly and easily. You see this orange bar right there. That is the amount that is overdue. It shows you what is not yet due. And then it shows you if you have had anything deposited in the last 30 days. So it shows something that has been paid but not yet deposited. And then it finally shows what has actually been deposited. So this is a really great screen to get a feel for what is happening and what the timeline is, right? Anything that's in overdue, of course, we're hoping that's going to be paid more quickly than anything that is not due yet. Additionally, it tells you if there is something that has not been deposited yet. Now, if you're using QuickBooks as your merchant processor, this turnaround time does vary slightly depending on what you're using. If you're using the QuickBooks checking account, money doesn't oftentimes sit in here for very long. But if you're doing regular merchant processing, it could be sitting in here for a few days before it comes over into deposited. So this is, again, really great for showing you when you might expect to see that money. So for me, this gives you a good bird's eye view of the entire process, right? Not just what's owed to you, but also whether or not, if something has been paid, if we're going to be seeing that money deposited into our account soon. All right. Now let's go ahead and go into our accounts receivable reports as well, though, because there is lots more information and lots more detail that we can get from this, aside from just the top line and then the list. So to get to our accounts receivable reports, and we're going to be talking about two specific ones today. We're going to be looking at the Accounts Receivable Aging Detail and the Accounts Receivable Aging Summary. These are the two reports that I recommend business owners use, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each one. So to get to those reports, we're going to go to Reports from the left-hand navigation menu here, and then select Standard Reports. Now, the accounts receivable reports are under the subsection Who Owes You. Okay, so that is the third option down. And you can see right here we have Accounts Receivable Aging Summary and Accounts Receivable Aging Detail. These are the two reports that we're going to talk about, But feel free to look in the rest of this section. If there is another report that is better equipped to answer the questions that you have for your business, by all means, use those reports. These are all here and they all serve different purposes and they all can work depending on how we each like receiving information, okay? Let's go ahead and start with the Accounts Receivable Aging Summary, okay? All right, so this is our Accounts Receivable Aging Summary report. And basically what it breaks down for us is who has outstanding invoices on our books and whether they're current or whether they are past due, okay? So a few things to keep in mind here. First, anything that is in current is not due yet, right? That basically means that these invoices have been sent out, but the customer has terms, and the terms say that these invoices are not yet owed to us, okay? So what I would likely expect to see if I clicked into any one of these is that these invoices will be due sometime later this month, okay? But let's talk about some of these other buckets. Now, from time to time, I will end up seeing things in a 91 and over or 61 to 90 aging bucket. And basically this means, plain and simple, that these invoices are past due and past due by a decent amount of time. 91 days sounds a little bit deceptive, but that's actually 3 months when you think about all of it, right? We don't want people to owe us for long periods of time. We ideally want our customers to stay current. So that's one of the reasons it's really important to monitor a report like this so that we can watch the progression and see if people aren't paying, how long is that an ongoing issue? Now, for me personally in running my business, I'm not going to be stressed about anything that's sitting in the current aging bucket at all, right? That is not yet due to me. It should be due to me in the next, anywhere from current to 30 days, depending on the terms that I have extended to that client. But that is not my concern at this point. The areas that start to be of concern are things in this 1 to 30 or 31 to 60 aging bucket. Now, even in the 1 to 30, I'm not going to be concerned if it's only a couple days into that bucket, and here's why. It's entirely possible that if somebody is sending a check to me in the mail, that they processed the payment in a timely manner and dropped it in the mail and sent it to me, and I just have not yet received the check, right? I would start to probably be concerned about things like this if we were hitting the 10 to 15 day mark of it being late, right? But just because it is in this bucket doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to be worried that the customer is way behind. I have to make sure that I am doing all of the processing on my end, opening my mail, receiving payments, depositing the checks to ensure that this loop ends up getting closed, okay? So before I email a customer asking where their payment is, I'm going to confirm that I have checked all of my possible sources of where I receive payments to make sure that they haven't already paid me, right? That being said, there are a couple things to keep in mind here. One, let's look at Elena Brooks right here. We see that she owes us $2,550. Well, that in and of itself isn't necessarily the end of the world. We can see we have single invoices for that amount out here for our clients, right? But what is slightly concerning is that we can see she hasn't paid an invoice for the last 3 months. This invoice here would have been the one that was sent in June. So that's already almost a 3-month-old debt that she owes, right? So that's where we want to start looking for patterns and seeing if people aren't paying over time. Now, I'll be honest, you tend to get to know not only your clients, but also the rhythms in your business. I know that there are certain times of the year where my clients are a little bit slow to pay. A lot of my clients are self-employed like me and try to take time off during the summer, whether that's to enjoy time with family, children, what have you, or just to go and do things while the weather's nice. That is all well and good. I have now realized that pattern and understand that it's not at all uncommon for my clients to sometimes accrue a couple of invoices over the summer and then pay me all at once come August or even September, right? So if I know that about my clients and if I am comfortable with that as a business owner, I can kind of let this slide, not least of all because you can set it up so that QuickBooks is sending reminder emails to them about invoices that are outstanding. That being said, if Elena Brooks was a new client that I had extended terms to and she wasn't paying the invoices, I might have to consider whether or not at this point it's time to have a conversation with her and say, hey, I understand that there are things that might complicate paying. Maybe you had fraud on your account. Maybe a check got lost in the mail. Things happen. But I am going to have to request that we get current on these open invoices before I continue to do any further work, right? It's all about being able to look at these reports, know what they mean to you, know what your comfort level and risk level is with your clients, and to make sure that you are managing for both of you, right? Again, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt and we want to give people grace, but that doesn't necessarily mean being a doormat as a business owner either, right? So this is something to keep an eye on. The other nice thing that we have here is we have all of these different buckets coming together, right? This is a little bit more detailed than that open invoices screen in QuickBooks. We can see what is current, and that would match up with the not yet due amount in that invoices screen. But from there, we have some differences. We have these two numbers. Some is the 1 to 30, some is the 31 to 60. These two numbers were grouped together into the overdue number in the invoices screen. So we can see where we're already getting a little bit more detail there, and that's really nice. Finally, the total here actually does match up with what was showing as outstanding on our invoices screen, but that would be different if, hypothetically, we had somebody who had owed us money for more than a year. Right? If I had another invoice outstanding for $5,000 that was more than 365 days old, it would not have showed up on my invoices screen, but it would show up on my accounts receivable aging reports. And that goes for both the detail and the summary. Okay. So the summary here is only giving us name, dollar amount, and how far past due they are if they are past due. Let's go ahead and look at the detail and see some of the additional information that we get there, okay? So we can just go back to standard reports here, back down to the Who Owes You section, and we'll go into the Accounts Receivable Aging Detail. Now, this is much more detailed, obviously, but it basically is a running list of all of the invoices that make up that total amount. So while this is really great information to have, and while it is fantastic detail to look at and review, there are some patterns that are a little bit harder to see here, right? Because I don't see the client and how many open invoices they have, it would have been a little bit harder to see that Elena Brooks hadn't paid for 3 months. Especially because this is a sample file, right? This is not reflective of the volume that some of my business owners or even myself see in their books, right? I have a handful of invoices in here. I have clients who send out dozens, if not hundreds of invoices every single month. So having that kind of detail, being able to access this report is fantastic, but you don't necessarily get to establish patterns and other things the way that you do on the Accounts Receivable Aging Summary, okay? But again, what are we looking for here? Well, we can see that these buckets still exist. They just look a little bit different. We still have this 3,800 and change, the 11,000 and change, and the 850, but they're arranged slightly differently, and we still have overall the same total, okay? So we can see where this information, it's the same information, just presented to us in slightly different ways, okay? It's really important to figure out as a business owner how you can best receive this information to make decisions in your business and to ensure that you're getting paid in a timely manner. Us getting our money, us getting those deposits from our clients is what allows us to turn around and do everything else in our businesses. And while that's true of service-based business, it's especially true of product-based business, right? We have already expended some sort of resource in order to get product into people's hands. So making sure we get paid for that is really, really important. Anyway, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. I'm Holly from Accrual Mistress Bookkeeping and Consulting. I hope you found this helpful.